some of us, as I look around, a good number of you are probably practicing about the first decade, a certain few in the second decade, and probably even fewer in the third, and I'm not sure if we have any in the fourth decade of practice. Being in, my phrase, the second decade of practice, I remember the first South Asian Bar Association meeting that we had. At that time, it was not called the South Asian Bar Association. It was called the, I believe, the Indian American Bar Association, and we probably had 6 to 10 people attend. Very small group. The demographic in that group is completely different than what's exhibited here today. And I'm happy and I'm glad that we've grown. I understand that we probably have between 600 to 700 South Asian members. We probably had between 200 to 250 here. We've come a long way. We have a long way to go. We've, I think, established a footprint. But as I said, I think we can indeed go quite a bit further. My soapbox statement aside, I'm here to introduce somebody who I genuinely look up to. I've never told him this. I've always looked at him from afar, looked at his model of developing a business, and after all, that's what we're engaged in. This is a business. Some of you, I understand from the foundation, might view this as a little bit different, but as a business, if we're able to make money, we're able to help you. And because of the sacrifices that Rupa said, our parents made, they gave us the opportunity. They came to this country because they did not have as much of an opportunity that this beautiful country presents to us. If I was back home in India, I wouldn't have the opportunities I enjoy today. My children, my wife, and all the generous gifts that we're able to enjoy is because this great country, whether you're a Democrat, characterize yourself as a liberal, or a Republican, a conservative, a libertarian, whatever it is, it's because of the opportunities that we enjoy that we're able to be in this room and share this moment. But let me talk a little bit about Navneet. Navneet doesn't know this, but I think when I was in college, probably back in '89 or so, there was a paper called the India Journal. I was in banking, and I figured the bank was very heavy into lending, and you receive promotions based upon how much money you generate for the bank. And coming out, I called on India Journal. I kind of found out that there was a person named Chug Navneet, and that name stuck. And as I came out of law school, I figured, wait a second, Navneet is now a lawyer. He's a few years my senior. And not only that, he's also got an accounting degree. Look a little further. He's a financial planner. He's got an MBA. He's a true Indian son for the parents. Every degree possible, and probably working on his MD, PhD right now. For malpractice, I don't know what that means, but anyway. Why do I think Navneet is a trailblazer? Some of you know that Navneet's got his own practice, but many of you probably don't know that he's got well over 200 employees and probably a professional staff close to 100, if not more. I remember several years back that I was at a function for a mutual friend when Navneet said, we now have hired our 100th employee. He's now doubled that and then some. He's one of the founding members of Saba as we know it today, if not the individual who founded Saba. And Navneet, please, no offense if I said you were one of the founding in the plural, probably you are in the singular. He's also the founding member of NASABA, our national parent organization. He likes to find things. He's also a founding member of TIE Southern California, Again, for those of you who don't know what TIE is, it is probably the largest organization in the world of entrepreneurs, well over 11,000, 12,000 members. And if anybody had or has had a chance to go to any of the TIE events, whether it's Los Angeles, San Francisco, or any part of this country, you will see the dynamic and entrepreneurial nature of that organization. I can go on and on. AIF sits on the board of I don't know how many different companies. But the most important characteristic, I think, and I value of Navneet is this. Regardless of his success, if you need help, if you approach, and I don't think you even need to approach, he is always someone who is willing to help, willing to offer advice, and if there is anything he can do for you, without even asking, he will lend that help. I've seen it personally. Jacob, my partner, who has also seen it personally, and I am, how do I say, so honored and pleased that I could make the introduction to Navneet as Saba's 2011 Trailblazer. I think he genuinely and deservedly deserves this award. And would you all please join me in congratulating Navneet as our Trailblazer 2011.
I promised you 1,000. I think I'm going to double that. I've told Abraham many times to convert and become a Sikh and wear a turban. He just won't listen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations, Judge Marshall. Congratulations, Rupa, on the award. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, Saba Foundation, for this honor, and the committee that worked very, very hard to find 3 honorees. All I can say is you've done a good job. Good to be speaking in front of all the Saba friends, and especially Judge Gandhi. I'm pretty sure you can't sanction me for coming in late and charging me $500 for it. I too, like Rupa, have nightmares about federal court. 20 years ago, I had a federal court action, and the client wasn't paying me, and there was a hearing at 1:30. So I said, "I'll forget about it. I'm not going to go." I go home. I go home. How are you supposed to know this? They don't teach you this in basketball. So I go home. I used to live close to work, and I go home and I'm having dinner, and there's a call from my office. Judge so-and-so wants to talk to you. I said, what? So I talked to, and it's the judge's clerk, that the judge wants to see you at 3 p.m. I said, okay. So I ran to the court, and the lawyer, the opposing counsel, was waiting there, Fred, somebody from Beverly Hills, and he says to me, "You don't do much federal practice, do you?" I said, "No." I said, "What happened? My client's not paying me. I don't want to show up." and again, I made the mistake of saying this to the judge. I never heard the end of it from the judge, and the judge, Fred, this Beverly Hills lawyer, was standing next to me, and the judge turns to him and he says, "Counsel, what's your hourly rate?" And Fred says, $225 an hour. And the judge says, "How long have you been waiting?" And Fred, who's been nice to me now, he says, "Only 2 hours." So the judge says, "Write him a check of $450 before you go." But it's nice to be here, and especially Judge Gandhi sitting in front of me. And I asked Judge Gandhi recently, how are things at the federal court? And you're now on the bench. He says it's good, and I said, how are you adjusting to the pay cut? He was a partner at Paul Hastings. And he says, it's okay. The check has lesser numbers on it, so it's simpler math. Judge Gandhi and I have been friends for about a dozen years, so we have this occasional lunch. Sometimes he'd come to my office in Cerritos, and sometimes I'd go to his office in Irvine. When he'd come to Cerritos, I'd take him to Macaroni Grill or Ambala Dhaba. And my budget was $10 per person. And when I'd go to Irvine, he'd take me to Mastro's or Morton Steakhouse. Invariably, the bill would be over $100, and he'd smile, as you know, like he likes to smile. He would smile and sign on the check, on the bill, and I would do my usual normal prayer. Good Lord, blessings to Mr. Paul, Mr. Hastings, Mr. Terrell. So then he's been bugging me, come to the court, let's do lunch. And I'm like scared to go to this court. Finally, I make a trek. I don't like going to federal court. Anyway, so I make a trek. And he shows me the chambers, and then he says, let's just walk down the street and have lunch. I don't have my car with me. I now come to LA on a train. Okay, train. Judge Gandhi sitting on a train, and while I'm thinking of it, I said, so where are we going? So he said, I have a new hangout now, just down the street around the corner. So I said, okay, great. So we go and we turn around the corner, and here's Judge Gandhi's new hangout. Ashok's Mexican lunch truck. I said, Jay, I drove 1 hour. He says, nah, don't worry about it, Navneet. It's the same cow. The only difference is there's no tables and chairs. We'll survive. So after 3 carne asada tacos for $1 each, I said to him, Jay, I'm sorry, it's not the same cow. I'm pretty sure this cow didn't have a green card. Ladies and gentlemen, Saba now is 16 years old. We've had 15 past presidents. They all still talk to each other, unlike most other Indian organizations. We've done dozens and dozens of events, and we also formed, through Saba, the North American South Asian Bar Association, which in turn has given birth to 19 other Sabas around the United States and Canada. And in 7 years now, there are 27 Sabas under NASABA. Out of this line in the bylaws of Saba, that we shall do some good for the community, came Saba Foundation. And Saba Foundation has done great work, but I have a challenge for Saba Foundation today, and the Sabas and the Saba in the country. We need to think big, and we need to do something bigger. After all, at the end of the day, in our DNA is Mahatma Gandhi, a lawyer by training who lived his life without a shirt and did pro bono work all his life. And look at what the pro bono work Mahatma Gandhi ended up in, a liberation of a country with 340 million people in 1947. What can we do? Cities, counties, states, and countries are like communities, and all of these communities have decided to live as a society, we must follow rules and certain practices. The rules there are in every country in the world, but enforcement of them, only a few have mastered. The best thing that's ever happened to me, in my opinion, is that there is a legal system in the United States that largely works. You can't say that about other countries. Architects design better buildings, construction companies build better houses, doctors are more careful while doing surgeries, and McDonald's serves coffee at the right temperature. Because the courts and the judges and the lawyers and the system works. Now, what happens if a system works? right? I was born in another country, so sometimes it's easier for us to see when we come here to see why the difference and what happens if the system works. Well, 5% of the world's population lives in the United States, 300 million people out of 6 billion plus, and 30% of the world's money and wealth is in the United States. The world GDP is $50 trillion. The United States has $15 trillion economy every year, 5% of the world. That's what happens. Now, what is the connection between a good legal system and money and wealth and prosperity? Bill Clinton called Hernando de Soto one of the best economists alive today. Hernando de Soto, as you know, is the world-famous economist from Peru who wrote a book in 2000, an awesome book I highly suggest everybody read. The book is called The Mystery of Capital, Why Capitalism Triumphs in the West and Fails Everywhere Else. De Soto argues in his book that for a country to prosper, for the poor to get to middle class and the middle class to get to the rich, the legal system has to work. Look at it. The two most simple things we in this country take for granted, that there will be a house in our name and there will be a deed in our name, and then we can start a company and issue stock in our name. Those two simple things is a nightmare to do in the rest of the world. And De Soto argues that the stocks and the deeds, just imagine the United States, if a majority of the companies in this country, you couldn't figure out who the shareholder was, and a majority of the houses in this country, you couldn't figure out who owned them and what price they bought 50 years ago and what was the price last sold for and what is the loan on it. This alone, because of this reason, De Soto has been going around the world and has figured out that of the $50 trillion wealth in the world, $10 trillion worth of wealth is sitting in unmarked names and people can't register them. And De Soto has been going around the world and asking countries to go to the slums, figure out who's living there and give them a deed, give them something they can trade, give them something they can pass on to their kids. Now, we can and we should export this wonderful legal system we have in this country to the rest of the world. What we need to export to the rest of the world is less of weapons and tanks, and we need to export our legal system. Why? Because we're so blessed. Why? Because we know we have proof that it works in this country. Just to give you one example, there's 670,000 lawyers in India. These lawyers are not allowed to have a website. India is supposed to be the technology guru of the world. 670,000 lawyers in India cannot have a website, cannot have a booth at a conference, cannot print a brochure, cannot advertise in yellow pages. And yet there is freedom of speech in the Indian Constitution. A trial takes 10 to 12 years. New cases that are filed now get preference over the ones that are 10, 12 years old, because the government figures if you survive 10, 12 years, then what's a few more years? And here's what the government has done because there's millions of cases pending. There are 30 government holidays on which the courts are closed. Because there's 5,000 religions in India, so they figured out the top 30 get a holiday. In summers, all the courts all over the country are closed.
Yeah.
Because the judges feel like they need to be going on a vacation at the same time. And in this country, 234 years ago, we were given a vision by a 33-year-old man. Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal, and there are certain unalienable rights that no government shall intervene with or interfere or ever violate. These rights include the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And for 234 years, we have made Thomas Jefferson proud by living these rights, enjoying them, and judiciously and vigorously defending them. All the lawyers and judges before us, all of the lawyers and judges in this room are carrying on this call of our founding fathers. So my dear Saba members and friends and everyone else, we need to take a pledge today. Remember the Asian people in the room. Remember your parents telling you that my son, my daughter, that a grade B is an Asian fail? So that's what I'm going to say to you today. You're Asians, the Saba lawyers, we have to be very, very good. We must do good work. We must be above average lawyers. We must take awesome care of our clients. We must be model citizens. We must give and give and give back some more to the society. We must work with the highest standards of integrity, morals, and ethics. And I have to share this with you. You know this, but I'm going to repeat. The highest burden of the society is on your shoulders. That's why you became a lawyer, remember? And that's why God chose you to become a lawyer. What the people of India and Pakistan and Libya and Egypt and the rest of the suppressed world need is not guns and steel from the United States. They need Judge Marshall, Judge Gandhi, Rupa Goswami, Saba Foundation, and all of you. God bless you.
On behalf of the Public Interest Foundation, I'd like to thank you for the work that you've done, and I'm honored to present the Trailblazer Award.
Let's take a picture with the